Thank you, Jim. I have the pleasure this evening of introducing a member of the class of 1959, Carboni. But before we get into that, I want to, on behalf of, could I have Mr. Terranova stand up, please? On behalf of Tucker and myself, we want to extend a sincere apology to Carl's daughter, because we tried for 3 years to get her to play basketball, and we even promised her that we would refer to her in the paper as Little Tank. Now, obviously, when you're a teenage girl, that's not a label you want to be hung around. But I'm glad you're here tonight to enjoy the evening with your sister and mom and dad and relatives. And we do, since we regret that. But I'll tell you this, you would have been a great Wesley High School basketball player. My first exposure to Carboni happened years ago. Let me phrase it this way. If you lived in Dunn's Corners like I did, you were allowed to get on your bike on Saturday afternoon and ride into town and watch the Bulldogs play football. And Carl was a towering figure as a tight end for the Bulldogs, and I kind of took a liking to him because, you know, he was forceful, physical, a gentleman, and yet he was very effective as a player. I can only imagine how many passes you would have caught, Carl, if you had a real quarterback throwing the ball to him. Jim, you have anything to say about that? No, actually, that was a very effective combination. Jim Capizano to his neighbor and best friend for life, one of his best friends, Carl Carboni from Oak Street, Tower Street section of town. And you guys were a formidable team, kind of like Brady to the Gronk, if you will. Carl's success went way beyond football. He was a member of a long line of three-sport athletes that have brought fame to Wesley High School. I can think of some past names that come to my mind when I think of Carl's exploits on the playing fields in the gym. Guys like Duck Gingerella, the late Dr. Billy Sullivan, Ronnie Stenhouse, Nick Stenhouse was with us tonight, Joe Mixie, Bob Mitchell, and several others. He was as good as them, and remember in those days, the Bulldogs, right, Coach, played Class A basketball, and Carl was a force when we played East Providence and Hope and LaSalle and all those great teams back in the 50s and early 60s. Carl played basketball, baseball, and football at Wesley High. During his senior year, he scored 20-plus points the last 6 games to help the Bulldogs qualify for the state tournament and ultimately become successful. He was the second-team Class A suburban selection in his senior year, and he was named to the all-tournament, all-state team. Wesley won the Class A regular season title in his senior year, and that was no easy feat, believe me. Carl Carboni was an honorable mention selection in his junior year when the Bulldogs won the state title and moved on to play in the Boston Garden in the New England tournament. As a student, he received the Providence Journal Honor Roll Award in 1959 for his work as a student athlete. I can remember probably one day staying in detention at the junior high and walking out there at 3:15 and seeing watch Carl pitch a no-hitter for the Wesley High baseball team. Not only is he a great person, he was superior athlete in 3 different sports. And yet he was somewhat of a unrecognized player in his day. I must say that. Carl received as a letterman in baseball for 3 years, he received an invitation for a tryout for the Detroit Tigers. He also learned 3 letters in varsity football. Carl, who we affectionately referred to as the Tank during his playing days, retired as a real estate agent in 2012. He and his wife, Joanne, live in Westerly. At this time, I would like to read the commendations for Carl Carboni. You, Kyle Carboni, a three-sport star in football, basketball, and baseball, graduated from Wesley High School with the class of 1959. Your accomplishments as an all-around athlete have earned you a place in this Hall of Fame. As a football player, you were awarded a varsity letter as a sophomore, junior, and a senior. You contributed to many of your team's victories by scoring touchdowns in several games throughout all 3 years. You also earned 3 varsity letters as a baseball player, excelling both as a pitcher and a hitter. Among your many highlights were a one-hit shutout against Fitch and several key hits that led to your team to victory. At the end of your high school career, you received an invitation to try out with the Tigers. However, it was the sport of basketball that you had your greatest success. You played on teams that participated in the Class A state tournament all 3 years, winning the Rhode Island State Championship in 1958, losing in the finals in 1957, and in the semifinals in 1959. In 1958, team played in the New England tournament at the Boston Garden. That same year, you were selected honorable mention All Class A. Your senior year, you were in second team All Class A honors and were named to the All Tournament team in the state playoffs. For 3 years, you played a major role as a scorer and rebounder in some of the finest Wesley High School teams that we've ever witnessed. Your accomplishments, as well as your teams, were highlighted many years in the popular book, The Swish Kids, written by local sports writer Bob Maher. Individually, you were recognized as a student athlete your senior year by being selected as a nominee from Wesley High School for the Providence Journal Honor Roll Award. After graduating from Wesley High, you entered URI and played freshman baseball. In 1962, you entered the Rhode Island National Guard, earning the rank of Staff Sergeant. And in 1966, you graduated from URI with a degree in Business Administration. From 66 to 69, you worked for General Motors, and 69 to 96, you're employed by the Prudential Insurance Company, retiring as sales manager for the Wesley office. It was then you decided to change careers, working as a realtor for Coldwell Banker, Cahoon Realties, until you retired in 2013. You have lived in Wesley your entire life. You and your wife, Joanne, have been married for 48 years and have 2 daughters and 4 lovely grandchildren. Therefore, for the positive influence that you have had on others as a role model and in recognition of your many accomplishments, for which you have brought pride and fame to Wesley High, in addition to the honor and distinction bestowed upon our community, you, Kyle Carboni, are hereby inducted into the Wesley High School Athletic Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Well, I'm the oldest inductee here tonight, so it takes me a while to get going. I must say, this is a wonderful, wonderful occasion. The committee does a wonderful job in putting this on, and I'd like to thank Jimmy and the rest of his committee for putting on such a splendid occasion. I'd like to start by saying, Mr. Toastmaster, distinguished guests, fellow inductees, family and friends, I would first like to thank the committee for selecting me for the Wesley High School Athletic Hall of Fame, and a special thanks to Jack Carson for his excellent nominating speech, which brought back many memories for me and brought me back to my high school days of 1957 to 1959, Jack. Next, I would like to thank my wife, Joanne, and my 2 daughters, Carla and Marcy, who are probably my greatest accomplishments to date. I love you both. And also their husbands, Bob and Dan, and my beautiful granddaughters, Lily and Allison, who are there playing their little games. As well as my grandsons, Robert and Nicholas, who could not be here tonight because Robert is studying at Brown University and Nick is studying at Choate, Rosemary, in Wallingford, Connecticut. I would also like to thank my relatives and friends for being here tonight to support me. Thank you very much. As I think back on my high school days, I must say they were some of the best days of my life. Sports did consume much of my time, as we started football practice in August. Then came basketball from November to March, and baseball from March into June. Back then, that was all that was offered in sports. Some of my best memories were playing football and baseball and traveling throughout the state. We had some pretty good teams back then, and we won our share of games. Wouldn't you say so, Nick? Basketball held very special memories for me. Number one, being able to play in the New England tournament in 1958 at Boston Garden. We had a great team that year, led by Ron Stenhouse. I also remember the trips we made to Newport to play the teams there. We traveled by ferry back then because there was no Newport Bridge. Maybe the younger people don't realize that, but back in the 50s there wasn't. I remember how great the people of Wesley were to us. Vera Malone, who owned the La Casa Diner on High Street, used to invite the teams for burgers and fries, and Mary's Restaurant in Bradford used to invite the teams for spaghetti dinners after some of the games. Also, another memory was in 1958 while playing in a New England tournament in Boston. One night after practice, the coaches took us to Durgan Park Restaurant for dinner. Each player was given a $7 stipend for dinner. When we were seated, the waitress came to take our order, but we all sat there and said nothing because we had spent our $7 during the day on a show that young men from Westerly probably should not have seen. The guys nominated, the team nominated Jimmy Cap, to go tell the coach we had no money. When Jimmy told the coach said to Jimmy, "What'd you do? Take him to the truck and lose all their money?" Well, anyway, Dr. Louis Marone, who was an avid Wesley basketball fan, was sitting nearby and heard what was going on and said to the waitress, "Tell the boys to have whatever they want, and I will pay the bill." Those are memories you never forget. And that's how good the people of Wesley were to us back then. As well as I remember the good times, I especially remember the guys I played with. To name a few, Jim Capizano, who is here tonight, and Bob Caradillo, who I started off with in first grade and went all through school with. I also had the privilege of playing with Whitney Randall, Vern Eliza, and Tucker Turnover, who is also here tonight, who are classmates of mine. In addition was Ron Stenhouse, Bob Henderson, and Sunky Reel, who graduated in '58, and Roger Hamilton and Maury Lamb, who graduated in 1960. They were all excellent athletes. I also remember my coaches. Among them was Ray Mitchell, my junior high basketball coach, who taught us the basics of basketball, and Bob Mudge, who was my first high school baseball coach. And if anybody knew Bob Mudge, it was "oh to be a boy again," if you remember that.
That's right.
And of course, John Stolatano, who was my basketball and football coach for 3 years. The coach was not only a great sports coach, but he also taught us life lessons such as hard work, dedication, and teamwork. The coach has stayed in touch with his players throughout the years. And I'd like to thank you for that, Coach, and thank you for all you did for all of us in the late 50s and early 60s, because we wouldn't have gone where we went without you. And I'd also like to congratulate you on your 92nd birthday. Jimmy took away my thunder. I was going to have everybody stand up and give the round of applause, but he already did that. In closing, I would like to say I'm deeply honored and humbly appreciative to be allowed to become a member of the Wesley High School Athletic Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.